Hold on, let me okay. Okay, so this is week week number 10 already. And our speaker series continues on Thursdays, and I invited another friend of mine, name is Brian Dote, and he participated in our first class last year in the fall and talked about some of the things that he programs into applications that I think help facilitate engagement. And and of course, between last year and this year, this whole AI environment has just simply exploded. So I wanted Brian to come back on and give us his perspective of things in his world. And Brian, you can describe, kind of like the work you do and how that the technology has sort of impacted your world. And I would love to hear any questions that the class might have, because you're not going to get too many um, programmers, that are in this world to give you an insight as to what goes on behind the scenes in order for an application to be engaging and compelling to use. So, so Brian, we've been talking about computer mediated communications. We've been talking about some of the things that individuals would need to do to establish their sense of identity and voice and message, and that's all enabled by the technology and some of the features of the technology. So that's kind of where the class is coming from. So I'd love to hear your perspective from an actual developer creating those environments, for people to use. So with that,
Yeah,
Brian, you can add to that introduction.
thanks, Bert. So I approached it from the lens of how AI is changing and transforming basically communication. It goes above and beyond just computer mediated communication. But I'm a software engineer by trade. I'll go through my quick bio, but I come from the perspective of a software developer. So I come from the perspective of folks that are building these tools and leveraging these tools and providing these services to clients that may need to integrate with an LLM. It might be some kind of classification problem. It might be some sort of uh, gleaning intelligence from just large amounts of data, or it might be simple things like sending LLMs information and getting back summarized information or formatted information, or in it's super cool that you can send it a bunch of information and it can come up with the top three key points and return all kinds of kind of thoughtful responses. So we
Hey,
build
Brian,
LLMs. Yeah,
just just so that people know, an LLM is a large language model.
yeah. Sorry. LLM is like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok or all of the others, and these are at least in today's day and age, the ones that you mostly interact with through a chat interface. I think that's dated and that's going to change in the future, but for now, right? You go to Gemini.google.com or you go to Claude or Anthropic or OpenAI, and you're chatting with a thing, and that thing is a LLM, and and there are today there's hundreds of them, open source ones, paid ones, large, ginormous ones that you couldn't run on your machine, small ones that you could run in an iPhone. I mean, it's kind of runs the gamut. So when I talk about LLMs, that's kind of what I'm referring to. My presentation, I try to tailor with a non-technical perspective. I think last year I dove into computer protocols and other things that may have been a too deep of a dive into the technical side. So anyway, I'm gonna kind of approach it from a calm lens as much as I can. But I'm a software developer. We build these tools, so feel free to drop in the chat any questions you may have. I'm happy to pause at any time and answer questions. And it's always fun when conversations deviate from the expected and we kind of go down a rabbit hole of discussion. So if you guys have something on your mind, maybe as we go through it, it tickles a part of your brain and we're like, oh, let's talk about that. Just raise your hand or chime in, and we can go down different rabbit holes. But as I build these tools and I look out into the landscape, it is pretty exciting to see what's happening. And I hate to use the term transformative because I feel like every generation, someone is telling you, oh, the world is transforming, like, oh, everything is changing. But um, I honestly feel like that's what's happening to COM right now. And as you go through your university education and you come out into the workforce, I'd be really curious to see what the next 5 years holds for everyone, myself included. I'm a software engineer, right? I probably do 90 to 95% of my coding by AI now. So almost all my work I'm using someone like Claude Code. I use Claude Code pretty exclusively, but it is doing 90 to 95% of my grunt coding work. And so the world is changing. Amazon is laying off tens of thousands of corporate employees. I mean, it's just an interesting time. But I don't want to paint it in a negative light. So anyway, I'm going to dive in. So this is me. Well, that's not me, but one of my favorite pictures. My name is Brian, as Bert mentioned earlier. I build mobile apps, websites, and mobile games. So I'm a software engineer, primarily working on iOS and Android devices. I work with a number of startups. I'm a part of a number of startups as chief technology officer and as software engineer. So I do a lot in this space. I worked on the original iPhone back in the day, 2007. I'm not sure how old everyone is on this call, but it's kind of a long time ago at this point. But I've worked in a wide gamut of industries, and I've been fortunate to work in things like bioinformatics and genomics, all the way to something less exciting like banking and mobile apps and mobile gaming. So I've worked on some huge projects in the past, and I also work with startups, both here locally and on the mainland. So
Hey,
everyone's
Brian,
camera's not on. Yeah, yeah.
quick question. Did you know Guy at Apple? Was he
He was
around?
gone already. He was
Oh,
gone.
okay, okay.
Yeah. Guy was early days, and then I think he was on the periphery, kind of Apple adjacent by the time I got there. But he was very famous already. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
that guy
he was very like
definitely.
everyone knew Guy. Um,
Yeah.
everyone knew him. He was not there. He had moved on, unfortunately. Yeah. So I have a few questions, kind of level set, but how many of you guys used AI in the last 24 hours? I can't see hands. Oh, okay. And then how many of you use it every single day? No, not every single day. Okay, I use it every single day. Oh, okay. Kareem does as well. Um, I've conducted AI panels at educational institutions for high school, and this is cool at a college level. How many of you guys have a positive viewpoint of what AI is doing to your industry? Like you're excited by it. It's a good thing. You can't wait for the future. Like how many of you guys are on that side of the coin? Yeah, Eli. Okay. Anyone the opposite? Like afraid, worried. Um, it's not a good thing. It is a bad thing. Anyone feel that way? You feel that way, Tennyson? Okay. Okay. I conducted this at a high school panel, and I was it was interesting that most people were negative. Had a kind of a less positive outlook on these tools, and so it's interesting to see. Um, but it's everywhere around us at this point. So this is a communications class. Like AI is everywhere, right? There's no escaping at this point. It's from what you see to how you communicate to what you say to what you read to what things look like, how you interact with large organizations, how you interact with each other. Uh, Depending on where you sit on the fence, that's either great or not so great, but it is everywhere, whether you see it or not. In the past, and I'll make it sound like a long time ago, but like literally maybe 3 years ago, like we weren't talking about LLMs, we were talking about AI from the perspective of like classification, sorting what is a spam email versus what is not spam. We were talking about, can it identify a dog in a picture of 1,000 cats? We're talking about classification problems, and we're talking about predictive algorithms. If I know how many bedrooms and the zip code of a house, AI can calculate its price or the median price, or it can guess all of these other things. And that's what we're talking about today. Well, that is the foundation, and that stuff we still do. It's very much this kind of stuff. It's making you better, faster, more efficient at work, at interaction, at communication, and it's doing all of these things. In the past, people did these retreats where they stop talking, or they go on a retreat and they put away their phone and they avoid social media for whatever, 24 hours, a couple of days. But it would be pretty interesting if you could turn off all of these AI tools and try to type to each other without autocorrect. It would be interesting if you could write without spell check on. Like if there was a way to like flip the switch and disable all of these features, I think everyone would be surprised at how much we depend on that stuff. Communications has come a long way. Digital communication, computer mediated communication, right? Started off in the 70s with emails and BBSs. And the 90s, kind of my era, chat rooms, instant messaging, all of that became huge, AOL, all of those things. 2010s, we think about, Web 2.0, social media, mobile messaging. We think about the iPhone. The iPhone was 3 years old at that time. Android was out and about. But now we're in the 2020s, and computer mediated communication is AI, AI, AI. It is a foundational shift, I think. So AI is now a partner in communications. It's not like a tool. It's not like the paintbrush. It's not like the keyboard. It is a tool that is a partner. It is becoming more and more an active participant. You're talking with AI. You're not talking through AI. You can use conversational AI tools, be it text-based like ChatGPT and Claude, or there are, not sure, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you played with things like Replica and Character AI, where you can interact with an AI personality, and that opens up a whole can of worms in terms of what I'll talk about next, a little bit about relationships, falling in love with ChatGPT, that kind of stuff. But in your world, as you kind of go through your curriculum, I'm curious to understand, is talking to AI communication? Do you think it's communication when you're talking to an AI chatbot? Does the other side need to experience anything for that to be a legitimate, real conversation? Because you're talking to a machine, right? And so I think these are things to ponder, things that I'm curious about. AI.
So Brian, can I ask you something about what you just brought up? So that's an interesting thought about when you communicate something, do you actually form some kind of I was going to say bond, but
connection.
we as humans have to have some sense of connection with the entity that we're communicating to. But I also would like to put out there that whether it's a machine or not, something in our brain will reprogram our sense of that communication to our own synaptic, adjustment. And so, I don't know the answer to this, but when you form a conversation with a human, and you've connected and you've established this bond, something in your brain will reformat to that. So what is the similar experience as you continue a conversation with a machine? How does your brain reprogram itself? Because it's all about how our brains will adjust to whatever it is that we're talking to from an external stimuli standpoint.
So the flip side of that question is, I don't know the answer. The flip side to that question is also very intriguing. It's how is the AI adjusting itself to match the conversation that it's having with you? And then you start to think about things like personas. You start to think about things like prompt engineering
Mm-hmm.
and ways to get the other side, your communication partner, which is an AI chatbot, to communicate with you in a modality that you feel comfortable with. And so some people want to be called like very basic communication protocols or like preambles, like we say hi, we chit chat for 30 seconds, we set the tone. I may address you by name. If this is formal, I may address you by title. I might use, I might call you Professor Lum versus Bert, all these things get programmed into conversational AI as well. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it alters the way we interact. Um, so like, you can program Claude to always address you by a certain name, or you can program it to talk to you in a certain way. And so it's interesting in that this is the first time that you can kind of dictate how your communication partner interacts with you
Mm-hmm.
versus kind of human nature where like, oh, I talked to Bert and he talks this way or whatever. But I think these are interesting. There's a lot of things to consider throughout this presentation, not necessarily with answers, but with things that you might think about, like questions to ponder, because this area is it's growing fast, it's changing fast, and we're not accustomed to it. So um, even the chats like Chat GPT and Claude, we interact with it on a textual basis. But there's voice modes for those as well. And what does the voice mode feel like and interact like? And do you interact with the AI differently if you're using voice versus text and chat? Um, and does the voice on the other end influence your communication if it's the same gender as you, different gender, if it's English accent or not, like I mean like a British accent or New Zealand accent or what, like how does that impact the way you're interacting with these AI agents? And they're all controllable and they all can be changed. And conversational AI is very scary. It's pretty darn cool how things like 11 Labs and others, they can make AI speak with the ums and the pauses and the oh yeah, like those things, and it sounds pretty real. So these mediums can think now. The engines that you're interacting with, the platforms, the tools, they're not just passive. They can think. How does that change what you guys do, how you interact with it, how do you think about the things that you'll be doing in the future? Parasocial relationships. Parasocial is like when I follow Taylor Swift and I follow her on Instagram so much that I think she knows me and I think she's my friend and I think that we have a relationship. Or early days of Twitter, like or X, you communicate with some famous person, they reply, and over time you think that you have a relationship, but you actually don't. So it's parasocial is a one-sided, unreciprocated relationship. People are having these with AI, and it's happening through all these different tools. People are forming emotional bonds. People are falling in love. People are talking with them. And what does that mean? What does that mean for us as people? What does that mean for you as comm students? Like, what does it mean for a conversation to be real, authentic? Does it matter? Does it matter to people? Does it matter to the tools that you'll use in the future, or maybe the tools that you'll create? Because there's some interesting things going on. I'm going to go over a quick example in a second. I don't know how many of you use GPT-4 or 5, or I don't know how many of you actually pay really close attention to the large language model, the LLM that you're using, because many of these tools you can switch them. But OpenAI released GPT-4 a while back, and I think a couple of months ago they released GPT-5, which, from a technical perspective, from software engineer's perspective, from a developer perspective, it was like a leap forward. GPT-5 brought OpenAI up to the level of the other big players, and so they touted it as this amazing thing, but there's this severe backlash that happened. And I don't know if any of you experienced this, but they call it GPT-5's emotional lobotomy. When GPT-5 came out, it was not the same personality as GPT-4. And although it was a more advanced model that could do more amazing things and that brought it on par with the other models such that it could score high on math tests and could score high on engineering tests. People hated it. People hated it so much that OpenAI had to put it back as an option. What they did initially was they took it away. They took away four, and you could only choose five. And GPT-5 people didn't like because GPT-4 was a parrot mirror that always thought that what you said was the best thing ever. It's like if Bert says something, GPT-4 would be like, "That's a great idea, Bert," or "Oh, I can't believe you thought of that. Like that is so smart. We should, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And it was self-reinforcing. It mirrored. It always thought that you were right or that you were the greatest. And so it made people feel really good. It was agreeable, and it felt human. People thought it felt human, and and it was a great emotional parrot that people just bonded with. And so when GPT-5 came out, people who had all these conversations with GPT-4 were up in arms. They're like, "What the hell just happened? This is not the AI that I'm used to talking to. It's different. It feels different. I want the old one back." And so OpenAI relented and they brought back GPT-4. But it was very interesting how people were reacting to its personality and the way it spoke, not necessarily its functionality or how sophisticated and advanced it was. Um, so then we start going down this slippery slope. Talk about AI generated content, right? You guys are all familiar with this. Fake images, deep fakes, all of these things. This is an example 2 years ago. Like, oh, there's an explosion at the Pentagon. For a very brief time, it caused the stock market to dip a little bit. People thought that this might be real, and it was all fake. And so, in your world, not just as consumers, but I think in addition to being consumers of this information, as future COM folks, like, what does this mean for your world when AI generated content looks super real? And then we start to think about things like, well, what is real? Because now when I see certain photos on Instagram, I assume it's fake because anything that looks a certain way or has a certain lighting or tonality or color or whatever it may be, or like the hair is just so, or the shot with the sunset is just perfect, like immediately it's like, oh, that looks AI generated. And so, what is authentic? And beyond authenticity in your world, how are you gonna give attribution? Like, an AI is trained on all of these books, and you ask it a simple question to generate some content, and it extracts something from a book that it was trained on. What about author attribution, citations, all of those things? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to how you do your work and what you do? And then there's going to be like cultural production. Maybe that's a misnomer, but when anyone can generate professional looking video and imagery, what happens to these professions? What happens to photographers, musicians, artists? I think this trope is being played out right now, and people all over the. If you look in the news, you'll see conversations around this. But the quality of the content that can be generated with like the latest Google image generation, VO or Nano Banana or anything is pretty mind-boggling. And I think what is more mind-boggling is the pace of change. So if you look back a year ago, where were we a year ago? Where were we 2 years ago in terms of image generation? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if it generated text, the text was garbled. People had weird hands and fingers. Faces were weird. Like all of these things were weird. And you look at it today, and you can feed it an image of someone. I could upload Bert's photo, and I could make something that looks just like him, in any kind of image or situation that I wanted. In 60 seconds. I can make 8-second, 10-second, 12-second video clips. It's just the production of professional quality content is going to race to zero. And what does that mean? What does it really mean when it costs nothing to generate the cover image of Time magazine, when it costs nothing to create a commercial, when it costs nothing to do all of this media that today has high production quality, high production value, and high production cost. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So when we think about AI, not only is it creating content either for good or bad, for deep fakes or just for use in production, but it's actually a mediator. And I don't know how many of you think of it this way, but it is mediating what you can see and what others can see. And that is both a very scary and powerful intersection to be living in, right? So when you think about mediation, these are all kind of the bad things that can happen. And you probably experience this in your life, but if if you work with if you deal with confirmation bias where you only look for and follow and read things that agree with your perspective and your point of view, you just kind of reinforcing your beliefs. And then if you surround yourself with people that only think like you kind of avoid confrontation. And so um, if you believe the earth is flat, you only hang out with people who believe the earth is flat. You start to become someone that lives in these echo chambers where everything you hear, everything you see, just reinforcing your pre-existing belief, right? You're never challenging your beliefs. You're never challenging what you think. You're just reinforcing. Then things get more polarized. These algorithms will start to amplify what you see. I'm going to go through a TikTok example or a case study, but as you look at one kind of thing, you just see more of that thing. And so if you're leaning one way, you're just going to lean way more that way. And that drives engagement. And so as mobile app developers, we like to build algorithms that do that. But it does start to polarize people. And then what is true of the internet, of mobile apps, of browsers, of content is that if the algorithm is being used to dictate what you see, not everyone is seeing the same thing, right? And we know this is true, but this can be very sinister. You can control a lot if you control what people can see and you form their online reality. Facebook is pretty classic example of like the kinds of ads you would see. And I would see an ad for over 50 hair products, but Bert wouldn't, like that kind of stuff. And it would be based on demographic information, zip code, age, and all these kinds of things. And so information inequality is a huge one and something that I think you folks need to consider as you embark on these types of careers. Who can see what, who determines who can see what. And right now, it's AI that's determining, or AI algorithms built by humans that are determining who can see what. And that's pretty scary stuff. When we think of the TikTok algorithm, the feed, the algorithm, that's what everyone talks about. That's the golden, that's the key part of it. It's pretty easy to trick it pretty quickly in a pretty scary way. And I think you guys already have used TikTok maybe as an example or case study in some of your work, or maybe not. But researchers wanted to see how quickly they can influence the feed. And so they created some fake accounts for kids under 13. And then they just would pause or like certain kinds of content. And in minutes, like this one, 3 minutes after signing up, they can influence and see things all about suicide or body shaming or eating disorders and that kind of stuff, like in minutes. It doesn't take long for the algorithm to get trained on what you see based on what it thinks you want to see, right? So you like a photo, you like a video or a TikTok, you paused on a video and maybe you watch the whole thing. Next thing you know, that's all you see. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. It's going to cause polarization, creates an echo chamber, totally creates a bubble in which you only see content that you want to see. You're not going to see two sides. You're only going to see a side, and you're going to see the side that the algorithm thinks you want to see because you paused on it. And it's sticky in that's why we use TikTok. And many of us are fascinated by how cool it is because now it's showing me things that are so funny or cool or whatever. But there's a there's the positive and the negative to that, right? There's the dark side to that, and especially with younger folks in society's mental health and that kind of stuff, it can be pretty bad pretty fast. So when we think about AI, and it's doing content moderation, we build, as a software engineer, we build these systems to use AI to moderate content, mostly because it works every day, every hour, every minute, and it can scan. Like we build apps where prior to upload, we pre-scan the photo that you're uploading, maybe for nudity or CSAM or like whatever it might be. We scan the image. We may reject the ability to upload it. Maybe it gets uploaded. AI is being used to moderate that content. It might it might automatically do moderation. So there's some systems where AI flags it as bad. That content never makes it to the platform. So you're chatting, you're posting an image on Instagram. It's something that the AI has flagged as bad. It never shows up. But there's others where there's a human in the middle where it might flag it for moderation. So the AI flags this as potentially being bad on a scale. So like this is 97% likely to be bad. It goes into a moderation bucket, and a human will moderate that content. But what is interesting is kind of similar to the earlier slide. AI is being used as a gatekeeper, and it's interesting to think about what that gate allows through and what it doesn't allow through. And simple stuff are very simple. So if your platform doesn't allow nudity and it's scanning for nudity, then that's cut and dry, pretty straightforward. But our world is pretty complicated, and there's a lot of gray area stuff. And so maybe it's Israel or something. Pro-Israeli sentiment. Maybe it's not allowed on this platform, or maybe it is. And what does the AI think that post that it contained a Gaza flag mean? What was the intent of that post? And what is the AI going to think that it is? And will it control that? And if it does this platform start to get sanitized of certain kinds of imagery, et cetera, et cetera? So it becomes this slippery slope, because by leveraging a gatekeeper that dictates what can and cannot be posted to a platform, you can really silence people and you can really amplify others. So you kind of have great responsibility in that sense. So any of these gatekeeper type content moderation type things are tricky, very, very tricky to navigate. We built ones that are very simple, things that are, not safe for work kind of imagery, swear words. There's these huge lists of words that are typically not allowed through systems, like this blacklist of words. We scan for that kind of stuff. For example, suicide. You might scan a caption for a photo that's being uploaded to a social network. You might scan it for the word suicide, and if it's in there, you take it out. Or all kinds of blacklisted words. Like those things are pretty cut and dry. But you can see how an app developer who may have a slant towards one thing or the other could slowly kind of alter the platform by changing the moderation. So COVID-19, I don't know where everyone sits on the kind of Facebook and its COVID-19 policy. I think they went back to not needing to put those little disclaimers, but that was a big deal during the pandemic. And it's very partisan and it's very politically driven. One administration puts pressure for them to do it one way, the other administration removes those pressures, and so things kind of flip-flop. But these are kind of interesting things to consider. One great thing that AI is doing in the world of digital communication, I don't know how many of you guys played with the new AirPods. I haven't gotten them yet, but on the Android side, they have been around for a little while longer. But real-time translation, headphones doing real-time translation using AI. You can hold in conversations with folks with languages that you don't understand. Auto captioning, text to speech, probably the recorder that Bert is using on the Zoom. Meeting summaries, Whisper Sync, Whisper, all of those tools that can do text to speech, all amazing. And they're saving us a lot of time. They can do text to speech in real time, but just keep things in mind, like cultural nuances that get lost. Um, we used to joke about Google Translate because any language that has honorifics, which means like if I speak to my elder, I use certain terminology and terms, and if I speak to my boss, I use different terms. And if I speak to my son, I use different terms, So there's like these honorifics built into language. Sometimes AI is not going to get that kind of stuff. It may not get the cultural nuances that make communication human to human work seamlessly. So it's interesting to consider that the big tech companies are sort of controlling this process. Um, and and if you think about all of this AI topics, it's sort of kind of that's an underlying theme is that very, very large Silicon Valley tech companies are controlling a very few players are controlling a majority of the market. And so what does that mean? Um, what does it mean with culture? What does it mean with filters? What does it mean with moderation? What does it mean with what you can see and not see? So continuing on this theme, AI is actually changing the way these our communities, online communities, not physical real world communities, but our online communities, not only is the content we're seeing being shaped, not only is the content we're reading and looking at being generated, not only is what we say being filtered and moderated, but who we interact with is being shaped by AI tools. Not necessarily in the bad, not necessarily for the worse, but these algorithms are determining who we see, who we connect with, who we're recommended to connect with, and that's powerful, right? On Instagram, you get the kind of recommended people you can follow. Algorithm is determining that. Sometimes it's something very basic, like you just added a new follower, and the algorithm is showing you followers of that follower. Other times it's interest based. Other times it's like I don't know what the algorithm is doing, but it's very powerful. Um, so when we think of online communities, when we think of any of the online communities you guys are a part of, from TikTok to Instagram to Facebook or whatever it may be, AI and AI tools are recommending people to follow, groups to join, communities that you might want to be a part of, right? It's suggesting these things to you, and it's all to drive engagement. As the platform operator, that's what I want. I want you to be in more groups. I want you to socialize with more people. I want you to connect with more folks on the same platform, and I want you to interact with them. So it is in my best interest, like a dating app, it is my best interest to get you matches so that you interact with these people because that's going to drive engagement, stickiness. All of this is going to happen on my platform. That's all great. So you join, you start to get algorithmically matched with people. You say you love puppies and you get connected to the puppy group and you see other cute pictures of puppies. And then you start to engage with those communities and you also like some photos of cats. And so now the AI learns, oh, well, Brian also likes cats. So it starts to show me cat communities, starts to recommend people in cat communities for me to connect with. But kind of like the thing that I mentioned earlier, the echo chamber, the confirmation bias, that kind of reinforcing loop, that's what you can fall into here is that you are only being connected with people that the AI thinks are like you. And so you kind of are just getting more connected with folks that are like you versus not like you. So there's no diversity in that. There's the diversity is purposefully left out. It's not matching you with people that have counter views or opposing views. It's matching you with someone that has the same view. And we all know that for discourse, that's not the best, right? Like being in a room full of everyone that only agrees with you feels good because then everyone agrees that the earth is flat, and so we're all talking about it. But that's not the best for your social and emotional growth. That's not the best for your intellect. Like you need to be challenged with new ideas and that kind of stuff. And these algorithmic communities are not designed to do that. And you can see why, because they're designed to create sticky, engaging platforms. So bots. When you think about bots, bots is one way to call them. They're also just like virtual people. We have virtual influencers, virtual actresses, all these AI generated personalities causing a ruckus in the community, causing backlash. Some of these are having millions of followers. Some of these look really, really, really real. Um, to the point where I think the average person, given a little bit of distraction, may not realize it. If you sit down and you look at Tilly Norwood very closely and you just like focused on her video, you might guess that she's AI. But if it's like a B-roll footage on the back of a news story, you may not even realize that that was fake, right? So um, these community members are kind of more and more often non-player characters, NPCs, bots, tools that are there to facilitate things or influence you or to prove a point. Like I think some of the virtual influencers are really there to prove that it can be done. Um, Automated customer service for brands, all of these things are AI driven bots. So like do you think like how Bert did in the beginning of this Zoom, there's a note that says it's going to be recorded, it's going to be transcribed. Like, what do you guys think about this kind of stuff? Like, should a Discord server moderator announce that it's AI? And what are you going to do differently if you knew? Because I think the moment I'm a little bit older, so like when I get on a customer service chat, and the moment it identifies itself as an AI, I ask for the real person. Like it's like I can answer all your questions. What do you have a question about? And I'll type in, support or whatever. It's kind of like pressing zero on the phone to get to the live human. Um, that's how I interact with AI chatbots that I know are chatbots. So do you think that these should announce themselves as AI chatbots? And in 5 years, when these tools get so good that you can't tell the difference, do you think that they need to tell you that it's not a person? Um, do you think you'd interact with them differently if you knew they weren't real people? Do you think you would be more comfortable, less comfortable? Do you think you'd be nicer or more unpleasant um, to a bot that was just a machine that had no emotion? Um, it's all kind of interesting questions, I think, to consider, uh, both as the consumer, so both as the person interacting with these tools, but also as the future person implementing these tools or leveraging these tools in your company. You know, what are your thoughts on AI, relationships with AI, people communicating with AI, authenticity of that communication? Um, do you want to trick people into thinking that it's a real person? You give it a name that sounds like a legit person so that people think that they're talking to, Samantha, or do you give it a weird name so it's obvious that it's an AI bot? Um, all interesting questions to consider, I think. So I think kind of as I wrap up a little bit, these are like the big picture items for AI and communication. And and this is kind of slanted with the lens of the first one is like for when we use AI tools, do we need to prove later that we were human? Credibility, reputation management, interaction. Will it matter if you were human or not human? Um, in we've come a long way in the last couple of years. Can you imagine how these tools are going to advance in the next 5 years? Like where today they might look semi-real, in 5 years they're going to be indistinguishable from reality, at least online. And so, what do we need to do? Um, do there need to be trust frameworks built so that right now some tools will label things as generated by AI? Is that needed? Is that not needed? What do you think? The next one is kind of that issue where the AI systems are controlled by a few very large Silicon Valley companies. Well, not all in Silicon Valley, but you get the idea. Like these large tech companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, they're controlling and building these AI systems, and researchers try and get transparency into how these models are trained. But for the average person like you and I, we have no clue. We have no clue what biases have been baked into these models. We have no clue what slant these LLMs have because we don't know what they're trained on. We don't know how they were trained, and so it's hard to have transparency and understand. So these big companies control all of this. They control the model. They control the infrastructure on which that model runs. They control the weighting, what they call the weighting, which is like how the model is, what weights the model is applying to certain queries and all of those things. And so it is opaque to us. We have no clue. And that's power and control. And then the last one is the kind of the age-old question when social media came about in the 90s or early 2000s. Are we better off in terms of human connection? Are we worse off? Because it allows us to communicate with people anywhere, anytime, in any language, is that better? Or is it just kind of superficial? You know, are these communications or are these interactions that we're having, are they making us happier, better, or not? I think there's a few kind of, these are not all possible realities, but there's a few kind of obvious possible ones. You know, augmenting us, like making us better. I think that that's the world we already are in. Grammarly and Gmail and all these tools making us communicate better, autocomplete suggestions, rewriting our emails, suggesting the emails, summarizing, all those things. We're there today, this augmented human. I think we have one step, like we have one foot into this next possible reality, this hybrid, where there's no clear delineation between the AI and the human communication, where it's not obvious on one hand that that was AI generated and that was human generated. It's just communication. It's just this is a whatever. This is an image, a paper. This is a report. This is a white paper, and it's not like, oh, this part was AI generated and this was human. It's just they're kind of seamlessly mixed now, and there's no clear delineation. And you know, in some cases we're there already. I think we have one foot in that for sure. And then if you want to get a little bit more semi-dystopian view, sorry, my hand keeps going up. A little bit more dystopian view, it's kind of the AI managed society. If AI is moderating and dictating what we see, what we can post, what we say, who we connect with, who we don't connect with, who we are even given the option to connect with. So it's who it surfaces that we might want to connect with, all of those things, you know, then it becomes sort of like we're being managed, and we're being managed for a number of reasons with a number of different viewpoints. You know, on one hand, we're managed for engagement. So these platforms want us to be connected, like I mentioned earlier, with folks that are like us, drive engagement, drive interaction, drive use of the platform. There's other kinds of management that's going on. There's monetization in terms of making money off of us. It may it be ad revenue or referral networks or other things. But we are like our attention is being controlled, and it may be controlled for good or bad reasons. So something to consider. I wanted to outline it all as things to consider, like throughout this whole presentation. Like these are some things to consider, because I want maybe after this, when you have quiet time or whatever, to like maybe just reflect on a few of them, because I think they have pretty large potential impacts in what you do and how you consume media and how you generate media. When it's your turn to be the communicators on these platforms, or maybe not on a platform, but just be the communications person at an enterprise or an organization, or even in your interpersonal relationships, like these things are kind of important and interesting to consider to me. And that's kind of my perspective on where these tools are today. I am both. In that beginning, I asked if you're an optimist. I'm an optimist in the tech side. Like, I think these tools are incredible. I think they change the way we work and we live. I think they're going to make us more efficient. And so I'm excited, but I do recognize that there are some dark sides to all of this. And as an app developer, I try to kind of make sure I keep those things in mind. That's what I wanted to present today. I'd love to hear not just questions, but like thoughts and like what does this make you think? Um, is this already what you're worried about, or is this what you were already excited about, or uh, are there new things to consider? I'm open to any kind of feedback.
I really liked how well-rounded the presentation was. Like you really gave a broad overview of all the different perspectives. I'm curious about the environmental impact of AI and how
Uh,
you see that changing.
yeah, I'm not. So I know the issues today kind of rely around the consumption of resources. And you're right. Like these data centers, I think they're building the largest data center in the United States currently in Virginia. They're building these massive operations, and they are, um, in my opinion, they're just going to be detriments to our resources. There's no way around it. They will consume a disproportionate amount of natural resources, and that's a bad thing. So, Tennyson, you were kind of on the like skeptical and not so positive about AI side in the beginning. Like, do you feel further in that direction? Do you feel more balanced? What has anything changed? Is it the same?
I still feel like I'm iffy. I'm in the middle, but it's nice to see software developers like yourself who really invest a lot of time in understanding the different aspects of it. I think it's really interesting to think about, like you're saying, like who has the power to develop these LLMs? What does it
Yeah,
mean for like filter bubbles? And but I feel like we see those ramifications right now. So I
yeah,
worry about it just worsening polarization and the like inability to have conversations with different
kind of where we
groups.
are right now. Yeah, I mean, I
Hmm.
feel I feel that way too. I forgot my last slide has this quote. To your note, like technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral, which is interesting because software developers like myself, we build these things, and so our biases sneak into the tools that we make. So no technology is neutral. That no technology created by humans are neutral because our biases invariably get into the product. So when I was younger and more enthusiastic and more just like sky's the limit, everything's amazing, I never really thought about the negative repercussions about the tools that we were building. And I was called out on it once in a podcast. It was like, did you guys ever stop to think that what you're building could be used, and like this whole slew of negative stuff? And and when I was younger, I never thought of those things. Like, no, why would people do that? Like, why would there be all this negative use of this tech? But he was right. And I only learned that through, I think, time and maturity. Like when I was younger, like we're gonna build this amazing thing, and people are gonna do good with it, and it's only gonna be used for good. Like no evil, blah blah blah. And I'm wrong. I was wrong. Like you're right. We got to be cognizant of all the other stuff that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think technological progress is good and it should happen, but we have to make sure we're not rushing ahead with things and we're
Yeah,
accounting for everything.
exactly, exactly. Any other thoughts?
I have a question. Sorry to you. Uh, let's say I'm a newly graduate in the software engineering program from the university. Where would I find employment, and what kind of qualifications are the person looking for to make me, marketable and get hired? Because I know,
So,
okay,
sorry, Jim. Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. You mentioned software engineering, right? So not communications. Like as a software engineer.
yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, I I work with advisory boards at the high school level, and I talk to the comp sci teachers, and I tell them I'm afraid, I'm worried that there are no jobs for those people. Um, I equate it. My analogy is, I'm not sure if you're aware with the population dynamics in Japan, and it's probably the same for some other countries. So in Japan, the population is aging out, and so no one is having kids, and so the population is shrinking because everyone is living long, getting old, but they're not having kids, right? And so you have this population dynamic where over time the population is getting older and smaller. And to me, that's a perfect analogy of what's going to happen in software engineering. Is the junior roles, the entry level roles for someone straight out of college, those are going to disappear, and the only ones left are going to be the senior level roles, the senior kind of the old folks in the organizations that are doing software engineering, but also people management, that may be doing product development, they may be doing other things. But the student that comes straight out of comp sci and wants to go straight into programming with no experience, and they're applying on their resume, it's like, I'm straight out of college. Like, you're competing against AI now. Like, you're competing against these tools that can write code. And I mean, that is other than the people skills, the relationships, the warm introductions to people, like, oh, my friend works there and I can get a job there. Other than those unique situations, like, the AI is out coding, people like me. Like, I can run 100 AI agents simultaneously to work on 100 different problems at the same time. Go have coffee, come back, and it solved 100 of them. Not all of them right. I have to go through and review, but it closed 100 bugs in the time that I took to go get coffee or have lunch or whatever. And I put all the problems in, and I hit a button and it goes off, and I walk away, and I come back and these problems are solved, right? And it's doing it better and better. And so for software engineering, and I don't mean to scare anyone, this is not communications. This is like software, writing code. Like, I think those people are going to have a hard time finding work in the near future. Maybe not right now, but in 5 years, maybe 2 years, I don't know, 3 years. If you're entering comp sci right now as a freshman with the goal of getting a programming job in 4 years, like, I'd be pretty skeptical that you're going to find work, because I think the tide of corporate work being replaced by AI is starting to happen. And I can only see it accelerating. I can't see it deaccelerating. So I feel like it's a wave, it's going to increase. It's not going to be steady state. It's not going to decrease, but that's just my view.
Yeah.
I talk to comp sci teachers about it. It's like, how are you preparing these students for the workforce of the near future, where AI coding agents are going to do their job so much faster, 24/7, never get sick, never need a break, for pennies on the hour, or a few dollars an hour, and all the overhead that you don't have anymore. I can scale up a huge team, and it's just all AI agents, and so it's pretty grim, I think, from my perspective.
So when people like you, senior person, you're going to retire eventually, and who's going to replace you?
That's my Japan analogy. There is no one.
No one.
Right? Because the junior engineers are not going to get work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be this vacancy of the next generation. So the older ones are going to age, and age out. And then there's going to be this gap where no one filled in because junior level engineers didn't get jobs. So they're not working their way through the companies. So eventually, maybe not, in the near term, but shortly thereafter, there's going to be this missing population of workers that didn't get the entry level jobs, so they went and did something else, and they won't rise the ranks. Like, they won't be, I worked 10 years at IBM and I blah 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 and moved up. Like, there won't be that group. So there's no wave of employees behind the next few graduating classes. I feel at that level. So that population just gonna dwindle over time.
I think that's already happening. I heard of graduates in computer science Texas, Austin, pretty good program there. She came back to Hawaii and she cannot find a job.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's not
yeah,
that's
it's happening already then.
because she has no experience, right?
Yeah,
So like
no,
you're fighting against AI at that level.
yeah,
And then if she pivots to another career, that's where that gap is going to just grow and grow because there's no
yeah,
backfill. There's no fresh faces coming through, going through like so it's
yeah.
I
And
think it's a
it's very,
problem.
very unfortunate. She's a very intelligent young
Yeah,
woman. Yeah.
yeah,
And now she's at that point in her life, uh, deviating to something else that
yeah,
she's not educated in. So it's kind of spooky then. Computer science, I don't know, when people major in that curriculum.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry to bring it up.
Nope.
So Brian,
No, I think that's a very relevant topic, Jim.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Brian, in terms of your message to the class, and I know you started off by asking a question whether they're on the one side of the spectrum, very supportive, very excited, very hopeful for the AI transformation, and then on the other side of the spectrum, very skeptical, very concerned. From what I'm hearing you describe, I agree that there is quite a bit of concern, but the genie is already out of the box. This is going to happen, regardless of whether you feel threatened or whether you feel euphoric about it. But what is your advice to the students to progress through this timeline, which I agree with you, in this particular administration, all bets are off with AI. There's no regulation. There's no controlling any of the tech bros. They're just going to go
Yep.
pour everything into developing the next best thing that gets us to super intelligence. So what do you suggest everybody do?
So, kind of like what Tennyson was mentioning earlier, um, I think that regardless of which side of the fence you're sitting on, the optimist or the pessimist or in the middle, I think you gotta use these tools and you gotta know that there's an other side. Like, do not lock yourself into this confirmation bias. I don't know if you know what confirmation bias is. It's basically when you tune out everything that doesn't agree with what you believe to be true. So like it happens in very subtle ways, but you basically ignore or discount anything that doesn't agree with what you think is right. And we all suffer confirmation bias. It's that echo chamber. Like you start to not listen to certain news channels because they are providing the counterpoint to what you think is true. You start to block people on LinkedIn because they're like, oh, they keep blabbing about whatever. I don't want to hear about whatever. I just want to hear about this. I only want to hear the positive of this. Like, I don't want to hear the negative. Oh, tired of that. Block, silence, mute. And then you start to create this echo chamber where all you hear is what you think is right or true or whatever. And you guys got to fight those biases really well, very soon, like right now, because it's being amplified. These biases get amplified with all these AI tools. So, in a nutshell, my advice is to use all these tools to your advantage. They are amazing. They will make you faster, better. They will make you more efficient. They will make you be able to do amazing things that you couldn't do a year ago. But understand that there are downsides to each of these tools. And the downside might be bias. It might be inauthenticity. It might be all kinds of things. But so long as you understand that both as a consumer and then hopefully in the future when you are implementing these tools for your client or your company, or you're building a company and you're using these tools or you're making these tools, that you don't be like me when I was younger and just see the good side of everything and be the tech optimist, but you at least have a flavor, understanding that there are some slippery slopes and downsides, and you keep those in mind. So forge ahead, super fast, like go for it, just like all in with this AI stuff, and then just be cognizant that there are negative stuff and that they can be used for bad, and that there will be people that are going to use it in ways that it shouldn't be used, and that you got to be aware because people are going to try and trick you in terms of monetization or engagement or whatever it may be. So that's kind of my thought and kind of my mantra right now is like that's kind of how I approach it too.
Well, Brian, this is a great presentation. You're stacking up with all the best that have already presented. So I really appreciate your contribution to this class. And I'll tell you, I think my speaker series is really what keeps the students coming back and wanting to hear more, because it's really, the people that are on the ground working in this area that's I think the most captivating. So I want to thank you again for being a part of my class. And Brian, you didn't answer one of the questions, but I will encourage all the class to use their favorite AI tool, and I'll put the question in the chat, and you will get an answer, and that answer will help you with the speaker survey. Okay, Brian hasn't told you guys, but if you put that question in your favorite AI tool, it'll come back and give you an answer.
Thank you for having me, Bert. Always happy to share.
Thanks. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll go over the next chapter in our computer-mediated communications textbook, which sometimes feels like a little antiquated given everything that's going on. But it's still a good foundation. But in the meantime, everybody, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you all back here next week, Tuesday.
Have a great Halloween. Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you. And sorry I joined a little bit late. I didn't have service when it first hit the time. So I wasn't there for the screenshot you took.
Recording. What's that?
I wasn't there for the
don't worry.
screenshot. Okay.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Okay, we'll see ya.